Now, globally, the banking as a service, that's the BaaS market, is leading a revolution in financial services, enabling businesses to develop new and exciting propositions with relevant financial solutions embedded into the customer experience. Analysts predict that the market is expected to reach a value of $7 trillion by 2030. Mudiaga Umukoro, co-founder, COO of Core, joins us this morning on Breakfast Central to review how banking as a service company is shaping Africa's financial ecosystem by providing the technology and the operating system needed to fully empower digital and automated banks across the continent. Good morning, Mudiaga. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
We're happy to have you as well. Now, talk to us about how you would describe the financial services ecosystem in Africa in the last 5 years, especially looking at the fact that digital transformation continues to drive growth for the ecosystem. What does all of this look like?
All right. The last 5 years has been really, really interesting. I think if I was going to use one word to describe it, to be disruptive. We've seen a lot of change, a lot of transformation within that space. We've seen the rise of neobanks bringing technology into that space. We've seen a lot of changes in the way customers consume banking services that have never been thought about before. We've seen also a lot of inflow of funding into that space to make a lot of things happen. So I think it's very, very, it's been very, very exciting. But despite that, I think that the next 5 is going to be way more transformative than what we've already seen before.
Let's talk about the competitive landscape. What does this look like for digital finance, and how's your company Core positioned to also lead innovation for significant progress in the whole of the industry?
Right. So as far as competition is concerned, there's been a lot of that. We've seen a lot of different players come into the space doing a lot of things, and I think that the idea of the technology that is being brought about by the different players is what is creating a lot of that landscape. So you'll find that some players come with a different angle to a certain problem, other players come with a different angle, but ultimately the goal is the same. As Core, what we are doing is providing the framework and the platform to enable all these players really make an impact. Because what you find about financial services is that even though you have some angle that you want to put into the space, you need the framework of the entire digital banking ecosystem to make even your own little piece work. And you find that a lot of times fintechs struggle, service banks struggle to provide really disruptive technology because the rails that they should sit on are not as they should be. So what we are doing in our own little corner is trying to fix that. Fix the rails that are broken across the industry, and then allow all the different players to really have a working foundation and framework for their own services to really thrive within the space.
Now let's talk about some of the challenges. We can't talk about the journey without talking about the challenges. So what are the prevailing challenges that have affected the digital banking revolution over time?
Right, so I think it's mainly technology. Technology is just hard to come by. You will find that right now in the industry, the fundamental framework that the services are running on are all foreign. And again, while you would think that that's a good thing because it seems standard, what you also find is that it is not easily customizable. So the core of the platforms, the core banking systems, the switching platforms are all foreign, built by foreigners to fix their own problems, and they bring them here to see whether they can be adapted and customized. But that's not working so well because our own expectations are different, our challenges are different. The financial inclusion challenge within Nigeria is way different from what you'll find in other places that may not even have that challenge as much as we have here. So what is really going on is that it's difficult to customize those platforms, and it's making adoption of the services within the space a little bit difficult. And I don't know, the difference between what the platforms look like in the West and what they look like here is really major. So I've seen this firsthand in a couple of countries, in Nigeria, in Gambia, in Kenya. It's just a little bit difficult to provide fitting services to customers when you're struggling with the core of the infrastructure to make it happen the way they will need it to be. So I think that's something that a lot of people need to pay a little more attention to. That's what we are also paying attention to. And as time goes on, I really, really believe that we'll be able to fix that.
All right. I also want to talk a little bit more about core, and looking at the bigger picture. What's your vision for the continent's evolving financial ecosystem, and how is core also positioned to bring this to life?
Right. So as far as the vision is concerned, we believe that every financial transaction will be digital at some point. Like, I mean, even though there's a lot of things happening now, we can see that the central bank much more recently, passed some regulation to enhance that. But even as that is happening, we believe that it's going to come to a point where individuals will be able to perform transactions without even having to be aware that that is happening. We are going to see situations whereby smart devices are going to generate financial transactions that will be secure and they will be successful and they will be seamless. As far as core is concerned, our own role is to facilitate this by making sure that the rails, the backend frameworks, they work. And some of the things we are doing to make sure this happens is creating a really robust banking as a platform solution and infrastructure that a lot of financial institutions can ride on to really create this future that we've already envisioned.
All right, now let's talk about the journey so far. Looking back since inception, what would you say has been the key growth drivers for the core business?
Right. I think the major growth driver for core has been the fact that we've not shied away from complicated, complex technology. We've seen that that is where the fundamental challenges have been, and we've been willing to roll up our sleeves and delve into the really hard stuff that a lot of people avoid. I mean, if you look at a lot of software and a lot of providers today, they are more willing to, provide technology and services that target consumers directly, but also more on the surface of the entire ecosystem. We have always been invested in the back end, but it's really hard in terms of the complicated nature of the technology that is required. That's why some of the things we've built, you won't find a lot of them existing in Africa. I mean, we've built a proper, robust core banking system. I mean, you won't find anybody has done that in Africa. You would also struggle to find people who have built financial switching systems that have also built and made mainstream across the services that we also provide. And a lot of these kind of technological platforms that are really intricate and complicated to build, but we've been willing to, from day one, roll up our sleeves and go right down into the hard stuff and make sure that everything works.
All right. Of course, it's a lot of work that needs to be done, but you can't do it alone. So let's talk about strategic partnerships, and how are you leveraging on those to advance digitization for financial services in Africa?
Right. You're absolutely right. Nobody lives in a silo, and nobody's an island. Right from day one, we have always been invested in partnerships. The platform that we provide called Bank One is a banking as a platform solution that automates the services or banking services of financial institutions, especially the microfinance industry in Nigeria, has plugged into it the entire banking and payment ecosystem, from switching providers to value-added services providers to USSD gateways, funds transfer solutions, commercial banks. We've integrated to the entire banking and payment ecosystem so that our clients, the banks that use our platform, do not need to do that on their own. And I think that as far as the future is concerned, we are going to do a lot more around that, because we're building like an operating system that the banking, the rest of the banking ecosystem can really leverage on. If you just think about it, like what you find on mobile platforms, you have an Android operating system. A lot of people are building innovative apps on top of that framework. We are going to do the exact same thing in the financial ecosystem, but we will be the one that will build the operating system on which a lot of these other applications are going to ride on. So I think it's really exciting. There are partnerships that we're building right now, even from other tech providers, even from other infrastructure providers, even from commercial banks. we're building a lot of these things to make sure that we are able to create the ecosystem that we have envisioned for the continent.
All right, Mudiaga, it's so much that you're doing and so much is, you're set to do, but we can't wrap up the conversation without asking you how you would say that core has impacted the Nigerian and the African financial services ecosystem.
Right. That's a really, really interesting question. Before we came into the scene, you would find that microfinance, for example, couldn't be associated with digital transactions. And we sort of changed that game by making sure that microfinance had access to the type of technology needed for proper banking services. So the idea of digital banking, debit card transactions, USSD transactions, funds transfers were not happening in the microfinance sector in Nigeria before we came into the scene. And what we found out, what we've done is have standardized that space. We've also impacted the type of financial institutions that actually exist within the microfinance banking space. Much more recently, you would probably be aware that the CBN has been trying to consolidate the microfinance industry. They've been creating a lot of policies, they've been creating a lot of standards and capital requirements for them for the financial institutions to comply with. What we notice is that somehow, based off of the technology that we have provided, we've been able to ensure that most of the institutions that are using our technology have, as a result of using our technology, been able to maintain, their standards. And we'll find that most of the institutions who are actually losing their licenses for lack of proper practices are institutions who have not been able to get access to our technology. We've changed even the game in terms of what is available for card processing. If you had noticed a couple of years back, debit card issuance is something that wasn't readily available in terms of how quickly it takes to get your card. So you would likely make a request to your bank, and after 2 weeks you'll be able to get your debit card.
Yeah, there's so many layers really to this conversation that we might need to certainly have you come back for a part 2. But this has been a very interesting conversation, and we thank you for your time, Mudiaga Umukoro. We look forward to having you again. I wish Core all the best with the work that is being done so far.
Thank you so much.